Today is April 4th. We have a Cranston City Council, a special city council session. And if the clerk could please take the roll on attendance. Go ahead.
Councilman Ferry. Councilwoman Ronzulli.
Present.
Councilwoman Jermaine. Councilman Donegan.
Present.
Councilman Campopiano.
Present.
Councilman Paplaskas.
Here.
Councilman Riley.
Today is April 4th. We have a
Council Vice
Cranston
President
City
Vargas.
Council, a special city council session. And if the clerk could please. Good. Okay, sorry for the technical difficulty and we're back on. All right, I'm sorry to the clerk. Where were we in the roll?
I called for Councilman Riley,
Okay.
not here, and Council Vice President Vargas. Council President Marino.
Present. Okay. All right, this evening, we do have a resolution on the adoption of city council rules for the 2023-2024 term, sponsored by myself. This is being sought to continue this to April 13th. And I'm asking for a motion to continue because Attorney Angel is not present this evening. This would be most effective for that night. If I could have a motion to
Continue.
Any discussion? No, clerk, if you can please take the roll.
Councilwoman Ronzulli.
Yes.
Councilman Donegan.
Yes.
Councilman Campopiano. Councilman Paplaskas.
Yes.
Council President Marino.
Yes. And next on the agenda, if we can take, at this time, I'd like to take public comment. If there's anyone in chambers who wishes to speak on the agenda items this evening for the special city council meeting, being the public hearing on the 2023-2024 budget. Anyone in chambers? Nope. And anyone on Zoom, Shannon?
No public comment.
Right, and I would like to state that public comment is now closed. The public hearing for the 2023-2024 budget. We will have the Finance Committee Department budget hearings beginning this evening at 6:15, and those departments will be boards and commission, city council, city clerk, probate, fire department and fire alarm, police department, animal control, harbor master, and municipal court. On Thursday, April 6th at 6 p.m., the departments to be heard will be Finance Department, which includes accounts and control, assessment, contract and purchase, treasury and tax collection and revenues, information technology, community development, building inspections, senior services, Cranston Community Action Program, and canvassing. On Monday, April 10th at 6 p.m., we will hear the departments of public libraries, economic development, executive, law department, insurance claims and risk management, and personnel. On Tuesday, April 11th at 6 p.m., we will hear the departments of public works, which includes highway maintenance, building maintenance, engineering, fleet maintenance, Bureau of Traffic Safety, refuse, care of trees, sewer enterprise fund, planning and capital budget, parks and recreation. Bringing us to Monday, April 17th at 6 p.m. We will hear from the school department and the school health insurance. On Tuesday, April 18th at 6 p.m., we will hear amendments. Thursday, April 27th, we'll have a special city council meeting at 6 p.m. on the adoption of the budget. And then on May 9th at 6 p.m., there will be a special city council session if needed to consider possible mayoral vetoes and final adoption. At each of the Finance Committee meetings, a public comment will be heard at those meetings as well. And I take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. We're done.
Nicole, your mic's on.
At this time, I'd like to call the Finance Committee to order. Clerk, please take the roll.
Barry, Councilwoman Jermaine, Councilman Campiano, Councilman Paplaskas,
Present.
Council Vice President Vargas,
Present.
Councilman Donegan,
Present.
Council President Marino.
Present.
Thank you. So welcome, everyone. This is the first meeting, Finance Committee meeting of our budget session. Moments ago, Council President Marino read into the record for the previous meeting what our budget schedule will be. That is available online on the Cranston City website. So any members of the public, I welcome you to go there to find a full schedule. Tonight, we have before us boards and commission, city council clerk, probate, fire department and fire alarm, police department, animal control, harbor master, and municipal court. Appreciate and thank all members of the administration for being here this evening, members of the council, our city budget auditor, as well as members of the fire and police department. Thank you, Chief and Colonel. We are going to start with boards and commission this evening. Members of the council, of the committee, who everyone that's on the council, whether you're an official member of the finance committee or not, you will have the opportunity to ask questions. I ask that we allow everyone to speak at least once who wishes to before coming back to someone else, should there be questions from all members. And with that, Director Zadelis or Director Moretti, if you'd like to start with boards and commission.
Mr. Chairman, with your indulgence, I just want to discuss my approach to budgeting, if I may. So, Mr. Chairman, Madam President, councilors. The mayor's FY 24 budget presentation, which is before you, is what I have internally named an austerity budget. And if I can just go into why I referenced this document as an austerity budget. From the inception, the mayor and the administration asked me to take an approach where we developed a budget that first minimized any tax impact on to the residents of Cranston. So one of the basic principles that we've tried to adhere to with the mayor's 24 budget is minimizing tax impacts. The second component was recognizing the known state aid reductions between FY 23 and FY 24. To those who served last year, we had known of the step down on the distressed community. This year went down to 1.3. Next in FY 24, it's down to 0. But during the formulation of the budget approximately 2 weeks ago, we had learned of the effects of changes that were being made to the pilot program, which was another reduction of $974,000 that we were made aware of approximately 2 weeks ago. So besides the known $1.3 million in distressed communities, with this budget document, we've absorbed another reduction of $974,000 in state aid in the form of pilot. Additionally, I was asked, or the administration directed me to start what I'll refer to as weaning off ARPA funds as a source of revenue supporting municipal service. So this budget, as that's before you this evening, also incorporates a reduction in the use of ARPA. And then finally, one of the things that we did, both from the departments, we've got revenue estimates, but we employed a dual system in finance on 2 different methodologies of projecting the revenues, predominantly the larger categories Two totally distinct ways it can be done in terms of trending, but, basing it, towards last year's by month, not just a straight line. So what we did is, in addition to suggestions of revenue changes, finance looked at it independently, two different ways, and before you is a collective process with three people projecting revenues, and generally we went with the most conservative approach to revenues. On the expense side, the function is to provide the baseline services that we are observing currently in FY 23. So our approach was the employee base providing services generally are carried over from 23 into 24. For existing funded positions that are filled in FY 23, those have generally been carried over at their current position in the 24 budget. The current budget, as far as I know, adheres to all the collective bargaining agreements. The current budget, as it is presented before you, the mayor's budget, funds at their required contribution pensions and the OPEB in like I said, in debt service. In just a cautionary tone, how things can change and it's not anything that I'm raising a red flag, but a yellow flag. And it's just the luck of the Lithuanian. As soon as we get the budget out, what happens is, there's a foreign oil production decrease, which inevitably will have affect this budget. So these are the best estimates with the best information that we had at the time. And I just wanted to just describe the parameters for which it was developed under. So with that, Mr. Chairman, are we gonna just go into boards and commissions, sir? Yes. Okay, and I apologize. I just find it more comfortable working with which you refer to as a small budget. So the mayor's budget before you, in terms of group code 1900 miscellaneous boards and commissions, is pretty much a predominantly a level funded budget. For FY 23, the budget that was recommended or the adopted budget for all the respective line items totaled $39,602. There was a slight adjustment in the Cranston Arts Commission, which was a reduction of $13, in the FY 24 budget as submitted by the mayor recommends, and what I will refer to as an appropriation for boards and commissions in the amount of $39,659.
Sorry, through the chairman, can I just interject there real quickly for anyone following? I know some of the council members are also looking at
Oh, I'm
1801 boards and commission.
Counselor, in the future, I'll direct it to this. Yeah, no, I apologize.
No, does, do any members of the committee have any questions? I just have one. The director, the only question I have is the Patuxent River Authority on the expenditure side. They currently budgeted at $5,000. They have spent $7,000. I know it's only a matter of $2,000, but that 140% sticks out on the expenditure side. Any idea why?
Mr. Chairman, no, I don't know what that actual expenditure is, and I will go back and double check that that is not a misposting in terms of a wrong line item, and I will report back to you.
Thank you, sir.
Through the chair.
Yes, Council Budget Order.
Just one question on the Arts Commission. It's just fully funded for the year. It just was timing
I'm sorry.
for the
No.
Cranston Arts Commission. The budget was 7,400 and it's at 100%. I'm just assuming it was the timing of the funding.
Okay, and I'm sorry. In terms of the FY 23, sir,
Joel?
the
The
actual,
actual,
we paid 7,400. That was the invoice, and that's what we paid.
okay, so it's just timing. So there'd be no other funding for that.
Mr. Mayo, no.
Do any other members of the committee or council have any questions about boards and commissions? Councilman Paplaskas and
Ju-
then Council Vice President.
Just a comment on Director DeMayo's Order DeMayo's comment. I think that 7,400 was that Bright Box project. And that was completed, so I don't think they have any more expenses coming up for the year.
Council Vice President?
I think you might have just said what I was going to say, so it's good. Thank you.
Is there any other comments or questions about the group boards and commissions before we move on?
No, I'll ask.
Oh, yes.
I'll
Council Vice
ask one more.
President.
Is there any projected cost at all that we know of that anyone who's just has not submitted any receipts or that is looking to spend anything between now and the end of June at all, whether it's from any of the boards and commissions that we have that you're thinking of that have approached the office
If I may,
in terms of
I'm
what we
not
have
aware
now?
of any, but as part of the year-end closeout process, we will contact everybody to make sure that any expenses that are seeking reimbursement will be made before June 30th as part of our year-end closeout.
Okay.
If
Thank
I
you.
may add, I probably across the board, there's going to be surprises. There's going to be things that come up that we don't anticipate today. As the director said, it's a snapshot of where we were with the best knowledge as of approximately a week ago. And as to what happens between now and the end of the year, which could make the numbers more, perhaps more, I don't know, use the word accurate because projecting differently. But there will be surprises, we assure you.
Is there an email that we tend to send out to everyone in the event that those that are chairs of the boards, just as a friendly reminder, as the fiscal year is coming, will be soon approaching at some point to submit their documents?
In fact, that already started. Mr. Igo already sent out notices about open purchase orders if there's, wants to get a feel for anything outstanding.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering, do we know if the Diversity Commission has plans to spend their money from last year? I know it was, I think they didn't spend the money from the year before. And last year, there was a discussion about giving more. We didn't, but we kept it, we funded it flat, and then now the same amount of money is there again. I'm just wondering if what's happening with that, you know?
No, and as I said, as part of year-end closing, we will contact to find out, are there any expenses for what the money was appropriated for FY 23. We will ensure that if there are expenses for the current fiscal year, we will recognize them in 23. But for this budget, we carried it forward at $10,000.
I think that's Director Perillo and was the head of that. So I don't know where that's gonna go from here. I was just
Yeah.
curious. Thank you.
Council Vice President.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that might be just to council, through the chair to Councilwoman Renzulli, given the fact that we don't have a personnel director and that is a chair, that's probably the reason why. In addition to that, not to derail from this subject matter, but on the fund, because we're talking about funding, I think the commission has really been able to meet, and it's most likely, from what I'm being told, is through quorum issues. So we should probably ask that of the next personnel director to meet on that and figure it out.
All right, seeing no other questions or comments regarding boards and commission, at this time, we are going to move on to group number 1102, City Council. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on boards and commissions? Seeing none, all right, well, we'll move on to group 1102, City Council. We'll start with the administration.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you, the mayor's recommendation in terms of the funding of Group 1102 City Council is a reduction from the FY 23 level in the amount of $353,397. And I apologize. Councilor Vargas, it should have reminded me, page 11, and I apologize again. To the FY 24 appropriation level of $329,687. The reductions recommended are on line items 52213 sonographer and 52214 orders of the council.
Councilwoman Vargas.
Thank you. Through the chair to the director, is a decrease because given the fact that we haven't, sorry, fully used that full amount, is it because our stenographer is kindly giving us some sort of a discount, or I'm just curious as to exactly what is it? I know that in the past it was 11 and I went and it was really high up by 18. Is it because we assumed that it was going to be used more than budgeted, and that's why we're bringing it down to 14?
Through the chairman to the councilor, actual expenditures, although there was the services were encumbered for the entire year for the full amount, actual in expenditures were only 7,800 through February. So that trend is, an observation that we're saying is going to continue. So we did not believe, or we do not have the belief that you'll spend the full amount. Relative to the court orders, if I can answer that question, through February, we're seeing an actual expenditure for a line item of 17,000. Expenditures of 1,216 through February, which once again was the rationale behind reducing that line item.
So do you think that that 14,000 is a relatively conservative number, or is that number, is it giving us cushion, or would it be lower? I know in the years it's kind of gone up and down, right? If you look at 2020 and 2021, it's gone from 22 to, sorry, not 2021, 2020, it's gone from 11 to 15,000 and then went back down.
Through the chair to the counselor, we're basing it on prior year's trends and the FY 23 trends year to date. So would I categorize this as a more realistic estimate? Yes, I would. You use the word conservative. I would say it's trending with your budgetary expense in this current fiscal year.
I didn't know if it had anything to do because of also the video streaming, given the fact that also was high at one point through Zoom. I'm sorry, because of COVID and the executive order and everything else, and then if anything was if it was relevant to each other, if there was any correlation, I guess I should.
That I can't tell you what the cause and effect, especially since, quite honestly, I wasn't here during COVID. I can just tell you what I'm observing right now.
Budget Order DeMayo, do you
Uh,
want to?
Yeah, the stenographer is running annualized at about 11,200 currently, based on current expenditures.
And for more context, over the five most recent complete fiscal years, it's running at about 13,000. So the 14 seems like it's reasonable. Are there any other questions from members? Council President Marino.
Thank you. I just had a question on the video streaming expenditure, 52217. I have my assumptions as to why it's decreased for the 2024 proposed budget, but before I give my assumption, I just was wondering if the administration could fill me in as to how they came to that figure.
Okay, again, Madam President, once again, if you look at actuals, through, or expenses paid to date, it was roughly 2775 through February, which was what precipitated us to look at that line item and reduce it down to $7,000 from the budgetary line item of 10,000 from the FY23 level.
And just what I was going to mention in terms of my assumption was that previously in 2022 and 2021, and even 2020 was significantly higher. But some of those prior costs and those prior budgets, the costs incurred, I'm assuming, and I don't know, was because of the initial setup that we had to enlist in former Council President, Councilman Paplaskas, maybe through the chair, if he can just confirm my understanding.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, the big number there is a year, I believe that we had to do the cameras in here. But some of the other years, you do see some higher costs, and it's not due to our video streamer. It's because we had to buy things like that laptop, and some equipment had broken in here, like a power supply and some other things. So it is nice to have a little bit of a cushion in the video streaming budget if something does break, because we all know that, and we'll see when we get to IT's budget, they're pretty strapped and they don't like to pay for stuff for us. So if we have a little cushion in there, it's nice.
Yep. And then my other question along those lines was I assume we pay an annual fee for Zoom tie-in. I just didn't know if that was incorporated in the video streaming expenditure or if that is listed or included in some other expenditure.
Madam President, I'm going to assume, I didn't bring the
Don't know.
detail of
Okay.
your expenditures. I'm going to assume that it should be paid out of that account. So if you, with your indulgence, I would just like to confirm that.
Yeah, maybe if we could, because again, I don't know this for certain, but I thought that the annual fees increased with Zoom. So I want to make sure that it's properly, predicted for what that expense is going to be in the right expenditure so that we're not underfunding that since it's a necessity. Thanks. I'm all set.
Are there any other questions from members of the committee regarding City Council? All right. Are there any members of the public that have any public comment regarding the City Council budget? Seeing none. All right, we're going to move on to Group 1105, City Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. City Clerk 1105, page 12. The FY24 mayor's budget is in the amount of $1,925,858 from the FY23 level of $2,272,474. Although I'm not going to go line item by line item, the biggest reduction is on object. And excuse me when I take out my ruler, because after a little over 3 weeks, these numbers are all starting to look like. I'm sorry, sir? Yeah. 522, 58, the biggest reduction is in the real estate tax, which corresponds with the applicable revenue, where with the higher interest rates, although they are processing a lot and revenues are trending up, we believe with interest rates rising, we're going to see a decrease in filings. So that's the explanation specifically of what the largest line item went down.
Are there any members of the committee that have any questions?
Along with on the revenue side, your instrument recording, you've increased by $700,000. Is that a reasonable assessment?
They're currently, yes, we think it is. They're currently running higher than, if I can get to that one. Both on the revenue, and on the expense side, they run parallel, as in it's the expense is a proportion of the revenue category, but through February, the revenue side of the equation is $1.7 million. If you annualize that, it's higher, but we back it off a little bit.
The $1.7 million on annualization is almost a $2.6 million in potential increase for the current year, current fiscal budget period.
And indulge me for a minute while I get to that particular page. And so in terms of, speaking to the revenue side of instrument of recording, yes. So annualizing it's 2.7. And we're estimating that's not going to continue into next year. And if you start with the revenue side, we're predicting $1.5 million. We think similar to real estate, this is going to decrease. It's not going to trend that way for another year, sir.
Probate, because I know that the probate fees are in the city clerk's budget. And I was just curious if in the revenue section of the clerk, is the inventory tax included in her revenue for the probate? Is that under the probate court fees? Because there's a 1% inventory tax that gets passed on to the state of Rhode Island up to $1,500. And I just wanted to know if it's a pass through, but I wanted to know if it was recorded in the probate court fees.
That one, the two pass-through fees that I'm aware of are in the instrument of recording and the real estate. So on the revenue side, it's 52124 and 52145. The specific one, and I have to apologize, I cannot answer that right now, and I will get back, but I believe it's in 42124. It's one of the subsets, but I am not sure, so I'd rather get back to you with that specific answer.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, the 1%,
It's an inventory tax.
thank you.
Are there any other questions from the committee? Councilwoman Renzulli.
Thank you. I am just wondering if we go to overtime in the clerk's office. I know that we now have a new clerk. I'm just wondering if that perhaps we might need less overtime. I just was wondering what has caused the increase.
In terms of the overtime, I'm gonna make the assumption that it's coverage. One of the things that they were short an individual. One of the things is they cover multiple meetings, right? So that's one of the drivers on overtime generally. We, in terms of the appropriation side of it, we recognize that there'll be a redeployment, but we wanted to ensure that, if I can just get to the proper page, Counselor. There was ample appropriation to both recognize their trend and potentially continue providing an appropriation where they could have access to overtime as they were, servicing the counter as well as servicing meetings.
Thank you, Director.
I think if I can add to that, if I have it right, I think they're running approximately $15,000 now. And probably the budget may have been low, or some changes took place. So annualizing that gets you probably to the $20,000 number.
Thank you, Director.
Yes, clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You all know I just joined the city in March. The opportunity to budget requests, nor was I really involved in the preparation of the budget. I did have a brief meeting with Director Zadelis back on March 7th, where I addressed some questions and some concerns I had. And we reviewed them, but I don't see those reflected here in this budget. So I just wondered if I could please address those again for the record for council's consideration.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Starting with the expenditures. I had the same question regarding 51101 for overtime. It's my understanding that this line item is to pay the assistant city clerk for overtime for attendance at meetings, which I understand is probably over budget at this time from, the previous year. But I do think maybe there's a potential for some reduction there, since with me being on board, once we kind of get everything, flowing, those meetings will be split between the assistant city clerk and myself. I don't know what the appropriate amount is, but I don't know that it needs to be doubled from the previous year. So that's something we can certainly look at. With regard to line item 51104 differential, this line item appears to have been zeroed out, and I'm not quite sure the reason for that. It's my understanding that this line item is in the event that I needed to have an extended absence, which I don't intend to do, but God forbid something were to happen. This would be a differential pay for the assistant city clerk to fill in my position. So I'm just wondering why that's been removed in its entirety.
I guess we don't build in those across the board. We don't build in contingencies for department heads to go out long term.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 52004, departmental expenses. In the budget detail, it says that this line item, $5,000 level funded. But the previous year it was 6,000 and it's being cut to 5,000. I know $1,000 doesn't seem like a lot of money, but when you're talking about office supplies and continuing rising costs, if it's going to be level funded, it should be level funded at the 6,000. Continue. Let me know when.
I could just comment is that across the board, you're going to find various reductions in some of the small accounts. We're asking people to tighten their belts. As the Director Zidelis mentioned, the mayor is submitting a very austere budget. And we have to look at ways of doing things differently, even in the small ways. So that's indicative of what we're going to find. In fact, I think you just saw it in the city council budget. I think you saw that. You'll be seeing it in every single department going forward.
Thank you. With regard to that, the only reason why I question it is because the expenditure listing does specifically say level funded. That's why I question the amount. I didn't know if it was a typographical error or if the level funded statement is a typographical error.
So we'll change the, I don't know where you're looking at, but we'll change it to reflect a decrease.
Again, I just want to note my concern with decreasing that line item by $1,000 when the cost of supplies and things like that are out of our control and they continue to rise. Moving on, line item 52251, dog licenses. Last year, this was budgeted for, well, the current fiscal year, it's budgeted for 600. The dog tags have been ordered and the invoices in. We did go over budget at $735. So I think a minor adjustment to about 800 in case there is another minimal increase this year would be a more appropriate amount. With regards to 52252, 52254, and 52259, these are all expenditures for advertising, which also have revenue accounts. And one question I had for Director Zidelis at the time I met with him was, it's my understanding that these advertising fees are paid by the applicants, whether it be, probate or the applicant for a license or the applicant for a zone change. So I don't really understand why there's such a discrepancy between the expense and the revenue.
And if I just may, on those, I'm gonna have to make an assumption that these accounts, unlike the other known fees, are linked in our work papers. So I'm gonna make an assumption if it's one-to-one, it's an error on our part and not linked. So a change on one automatically makes a change on another line item, AKA the revenue follows the expense. So I can check on that one.
Thank you very much. When I met with Director Zidelis, I did ask for some minor additions to the budget, approximately $300 for dues for professional associations. The city clerk, the assistant city clerk is a member of the Rhode Island Clerks Association. I am a member of the Rhode Island, New England, and International Municipal Clerks Associations. That's for my professional development. And I need to maintain my status in those to maintain my CMC and work towards my MMC. That was about $300. There is no line item for it. I had asked for it to be added.
Can I add to that, Chairman? There was definitely a line item that we were paying for the league, the city and towns. Do any of you guys remember which line item that was?
That-
Because it was out of the mayor's office then? Okay.
Yeah, that would be an administrative
That would be
cost, not for the Clerks
administrative.
Association,
Okay,
correct?
'cause I think through the clerk, when Maria Wall was here, she was getting paid through the clerk, the league was being paid for her, so for her to be part of it through that payment.
That might, I think that might have been the Rhode Island Clerks Association. She was a member of the Rhode Island Clerks Association. That might be what you're referring to. The Rhode Island League is a little bit different.
Right.
That's
League of
usually
Cities
the
and Towns.
administration, the town managers, mayors, those type of things are usually members of that organization.
Just double checking because it was both.
Likewise, I had asked for an additional line item for approximately $2,000 for continuing education credits for me to maintain my certified municipal clerk and to work towards my master municipal clerk. And then the last one, the city clerk's office is severely behind on technology. And I understand that, finances are tight. But there's something to be said for, investing in technology to assist your staff and maybe reduce costs on other ends. So I had asked for $15,000 for a business licensing software program. That is a quote I received from one company, so I would expect that it would be no more than 15,000. And this would allow us to have a program to input, track, run reports and everything for all the licenses issued by the city. I think this would be a great first step in heading towards the right direction to get some automation in the office. It would be particularly helpful for the Safety Services Commission and the council when licenses were to come up for renewal and they wanted history. Right now, that's all done manually. It's very labor intensive. And it does at times, result in human error. So I had asked for that. So I hope that will be considered. On the revenue side, line 42138 for tobacco licenses. We're budgeting $11,000 of revenue. However, those licenses are being phased out. So that should be zero. And the only final question I had was, in the instrument recording, we should be taking in $3 per document for State Historical Trust and $1 to the city for Historical Records Trust. And I just want to be sure that there are somewhere a reflection of that in the budget, that we pay that out to the state, and then that other the $3 is paid to the state and the other $1 is retained in a preserved account that is specifically reserved for certain purposes, such as preservation of historic documents.
Through the chair to the counselor, I am not aware that it's reserved. And that's something we can work on how we record them. When revenues come in, they do just hit a revenue account. We can set it up so they do hit a reserve account. So that would be an accounting change.
Likewise, on that matter, the same thing happens with the probate filing fees. $3 per instrument goes to the state. $1 is to the city for historic preservation. And then also, according to Rhode Island General Law 34-13-7, 10% of recording fees provided for in this section shall be utilized by each city or town for the purpose of document preservation and technological upgrades. So I just want to be sure that 10% of those fees are also being set aside for those purposes. That's the end of my questions. Thank you.
Council President Marino.
Thank you, Tracy, for speaking up on the issues in your department that are important. I will along those lines say that I would like to see the $15,000 implemented if somehow we could do that with the technology so that we can start to get to a place where we need to be. And that would also free up time for the clerks probably with that type of system, and it would free up space.
If I, through the chair to the council president, there are two parts to that. Yes, I am one who embraces technology. The one issue is, this is one that we would logically run that through our IT department, as we do with the vast majority of our Um, software applications, number one. Number two, we will have to work with the clerk's office to get a scope of services or determine that this one is going to be a sole source and there's no other, I know the clerk had stated she had a preferred so there was a software package, she had an estimate, but, and I'm sorry, we'd have to run that through IT and run it through purchasing and BOCAP.
Clerk?
Through the chair. That price was just a quote given to me by one particular company who offered us a free demo. I realize and happy to do a whole RFP, RFQ, whatever's necessary to do that. That was only to indicate that I know I can get it for 15,000 or less. So if we went out to RFP, that is the maximum amount I would expect to spend. I don't necessarily have any, reason to choose that particular company. They happened to offer a free demo. So I got the quote and just use that.
Recognize Councilwoman Renzulli and then Council President Moreno.
Thank you. Through the chair, I guess to whoever can answer this, do we still have clerk base, right? Are we still using that?
No, ma'am, we do
We-
not.
We don't have, okay,
No.
thank you.
Along a different line, but still within the city clerk department, I had a question for you, Director Zadelis, on expenditure 51302 with the hospitalization being projected to be significantly lower for the upcoming budget. And I'm just wondering where that number is coming from because the forecast is important.
Madam President, I can say that the hospitalization amount for FY 24 is directly linked to the employee and rates. So in terms of, if I can get to that line item, the 46,000, which is in the budget, is directly related to the employee, the rate, and the plan that they have. And if you can give me 1 second. The records of finance have, as of February 19th, have 4 individuals currently enrolled in getting health insurance, and this is the cost of their plan, the respective costs of their plan for those employees. So I can say that the work papers that links the employee to their health insurance should be more accurate for FY 24 than it was in previous years. So I'm confident in the health insurance amount that's depicted in the budget.
All right. I'm all set.
Are there any other questions regarding the city clerk's office? Yes, Council Vice President.
So I want to apologize to the council president if she asked this question, because I was asking our auditor a different question within that matter, separate matter. So the salary schedule that has been submitted for FY 24 in terms of the SAP, in terms of the did you just ask about the hospitalization, Council President? Okay, I'll just ask you as a follow-up, because that might be my question that I had right on here on the hospitalization. I don't, for lack of time, but in terms of the salary submitted by the clerk's office, that's obviously all inclusive already of all the salary steps, correct? Increases that are already into account?
Through the chairman to the council vice president, that's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, if there are no other questions regarding the city clerk's department, we'll move on next to the probate is next. Do we want to do probate and municipal court first, or do we want to? Let's do municipal. Okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah, let's do probate, excuse me, is next on the.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Probate, once again, page 12, group number 1106. The FY 23 budget was $19,339. For FY 24, the mayor is recommending an appropriation of $18,839, a reduction of $500, which predominantly is coming out of the line item departmental expenses, which is, consistent with prior years, zero budgets for departmental expenses.
Are there any questions? All right, are there any, is there any public comment regarding either the city clerk or the probate? Seeing none. Seeing none online either. Okay, we are moving on to the fire department and fire alarm.
Mr. Chairman, the mayor's FY 24 budget is in the amount of $37,216,710, which is a reduction from the FY 23 level of $37,397,821. Of note, although the amount is reduced, the complement is increased, and it's due to the fact that the current class is being paid for with the new and improved SAFER grant, whereby the federal government, unlike previous SAFER grants, paid for 75% of the employee in their fringes. The current SAFER grant picks up 100% of salaries and fringes of those eligible new recruits that are going to be firefighters for the city of Cranston.
Thank you. I have one question. Chief, thank you as always for being here. Overtime is budgeted, is level funded for next year. The average over the past 5 most recent years is just shy of 6 million. And I believe it's at 75% of the, so it's running at about annualized about 6.1. So is the level funding of 5,500, is that realistic? 5.5.
And before I turn it over to the chief, if I just may answer your question, you are correct that the overtime budget is trending down 6.1 compared to actual for the previous year 6.4. So the reliance on overtime is going down. That coupled with the addition of the new recruits led us to level fund it with the assumption that that trend going down will continue. Additionally, what we've seen in prior years is as the overtime is decreasing, we are still picking up because we budget 100% in the salaries. There's that relationship between having at year end the salary amount, the reversion to cover the overtime. So in terms of the logic behind the level funding of overtime, we anticipate that the work that the chief has done managing man hours will continue into FY 24. So if I will turn it over to the chief.
Yeah, and we were also hoping to get a sooner verdict on the SAFER grant. We were hoping to have them, the new firefighters, start last September. That hurt. We didn't get them started until March 13th of this year. That was one of our big problems, was waiting for FEMA to give us the grant. So that was a big hit to us. We thought we'd have a lower overtime cost this year.
So that was going to be my next question. So the firefighters that are funded through the SAFER grant, they will be in the, fully up and running for the
They'll be on
entirety
trucks
of the
in
next.
July of this year.
Okay.
That'll be 13 new firefighters.
Director Zedell, so it was the year before it was 6.4. It's trending towards 6.1 for this current budget year. So we're saying the addition of 13 new firefighters will reduce it by about another 600,000.
Through the chair and as the chief aptly pointed out, it was trending down before the recruits coming in. So yes, with the recruits, we are anticipating that trend to continue to that extent.
Through the chair, chief, are there any more firefighters that are out on injury that are still not put into the state pension yet? How many?
We just had two gonna retire this month and one next month. So we are working diligently to get our IOD cases cleared, especially long term.
Councilman, I question if Mrs. Idellis's number, actually, the 5.5 million myself. And aside from what Mrs. Idellis stated, if we did quick math as a sanity check to this, 12 or 13 firefighters is about $1.3 million. When they're not on, those incremental firefighters being funded from SAFER. When they're not on, we're paying time and a half through minimum manning. Half-time is about $700,000. So if you take off 600,000 from the 6,000,001, get you back to the 5,000,005. That's what satisfied actually me in my discussions with the finance director.
Does anyone have any questions at this time? Councilman Paplaskas.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you. And thank you to all the members of your department. Couple simple questions. I see on here a real small item, $2,000 civil defense prep. Just curious what that goes towards.
Yeah, we use that to train people to command CPR classes and get the cert team back on again and the process of doing that.
Okay. Which station's the busiest? Is it still Station 3? We keep you busy in Knightsville. One other question, past budgets, we had discussed a radio upgrade and fire alarm upgrade. How's that going? Is that completed? And it's wireless, I understand, the new ones that you're putting in the businesses?
Yes, the fire alarms are all radio boxes, all the game wells out of businesses. That's being done by the businesses themselves. We are upgrading all the fire alarm panels. There'll be no more street boxes.
Okay, and then one other question, I don't know if I should be asking this under fire alarm or not. I know years past, you were budgeting for a bucket truck. Did you ever end up getting? Okay, well, what year is the truck you're using now? Do you know off the top of your head?
Maintenance division, our fire alarm division, and our fire.
Okay,
Did get extra money, vehicle replacement account, but then we replaced.
maybe that's something through the chair to Madam President, maybe we can work with the grant writer to try to secure some funding for a bucket truck. I do see the crew out on the weekends, even sometimes servicing the traffic lights when they're down. And I know they have a lot of workload and you can tell just by looking at it that that truck's been around a while. So maybe that's something we can look into to try to help the department. Thank you.
Councilman Pavlovskis, any other questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Council Vice President.
So. How are you? Actually, then I probably say it just to make sure that we understand it correctly in terms of the dollar amount.
So it's running right now at about 200%. And then in the budget, the administration's budget, it's picking up the 7650. Are those renewable on a certain date? So in other words, the fees all come in at once and it won't be increased over the course of the next 4 months.
That's what the first one,
The gas petroleum permits.
those come in the year, throughout the year.
Throughout the year. So potentially that number could be even increased further for the last 4 months. Okay, thank you.
Council President Marino.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief, for coming this evening and taking the time with respect to this budget and answering our questions. Thank you to everyone in your department. And to Councilman Paplaskas' mention of, potential improvements for a bucket truck. Definitely open to that. I know that I've had some discussions with the grant writer. I know your facilities are in need of repair as well, and if there's any improvements we can do with respect to the buildings, those may be very high aspirational hopes, but we're gonna try. Okay. Yep. Yep. I did have a question, but I think you probably touched upon it and maybe not, maybe I'm wrong. In terms of the expenditures with 53503, the injured on duty, the Blue Cross there, I see that is going to be significantly reduced as a projection for next year. Is that because you anticipate some retirements, or is there some other reason for that projected decrease just because of the way it's trending currently, maybe? Is that Director Zadelis? Okay. Yep.
Madam Council President, yes, that's correct. It's how it's trending.
I don't have any other questions this evening. Thank you.
There any other questions? Chief, thank you. Are there any members of the public online or in person that have any questions regarding the fire department or? No? All
No
right,
public comment?
Fire, we are moving on to fire alarm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I assume that with the Councilor Papalakis' question, we had done it, but the mayor's FY 24 budget is in the amount of $303,000, a slight reduction from the FY 23 budget, adopted budget of $305,000. So, you'll see most of the slight modifications in a couple of areas. The biggest reduction is in the area of electrical equipment repair, which we're recommending a reduction of $3,000 between the 2 fiscal years.
What about line 53112 radio maintenance that, oh, Councilman Paplaskas had asked about that, right? Okay, all right.
So we just wanted to, did receive a grant of $20,000 FEMA, and we're using that money for, upgrading our radio console apps. No further to see it.
Are there any other questions regarding fire alarm? Seeing none, any members of the public have any question or comment regarding fire alarm? None in person, any online?
No public comment.
All right, at this time, Chief, thank you. At this time, we will move on to the police department.
Thanks, Chief. I'm sorry. Agent? No? Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The mayor's proposed FY 24 budget for the Cranston Police Department is in the amount of $29,040,463. That's an increase over the FY 23 appropriation of $28,405,686 dollars. Line items across the up and down the gamut of their accounts have increased and decreased. One note is the increase in overtime, which is we're recommending an increase of 300,000 based on trends that we're seeing over the $1.2 million appropriation for FY 23.
Does anyone on the committee have any questions, or Colonel, do you have any comments that you'd like?
Nope, I'll answer any questions you have regarding the budget.
Thank you. I'll just, one thing, Colonel, thank you for everything the department does. I would strongly encourage anyone that's listening to this now or in the future, the police department puts out an annual report that's available online that really does give a lot of information about the department, the state of, what's going on in the city. And I would really encourage anyone interested to go to the Cranston Police website and check that out. It is a tremendous resource. Are there any members of the committee that have any questions? Start with Councilman Paplaskas.
Thank you. Just first a comment. Thank you to the men and women of your department and to you and your command staff, always extremely responsive to the constituents and the residents in Ward 5. And I certainly appreciate everything that you do and for keeping us all safe. I have one question, and I'm sure this has been asked during the years I've been here. Crossing guards, it's in your budget. Why is it in your budget, not the school department's budget? Just curious.
I'm not sure because we don't have any direct oversight with the contract negotiations. We do provide input on some of the posts, but it's mostly the school department that, should be more involved in it, and because they know where the bus stops are and so on and so forth. But that's been an increasing cost over the years with the vendor that we've been using.
Does the hiring come through your department or does that go through the school department too?
It's a subcontractor, so that subcontractor does all the hiring.
And the school department negotiates it?
The city negotiates it, and I believe the school department has some say on increasing some of the posts, decreasing the post, where the post should be, so they have a big involvement in we've had discussions whether it belongs with the school department for that reason, under their budget.
Okay, thank you, chief. I'm gonna follow up when they come here. So if they're watching on YouTube, get ready for the question. Thanks. Chairman, I have no other questions or comments. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Council President Marino?
Good evening, Colonel. Thank you for everything you do every day, and everyone in your department does as well. Thank you for coming here this evening and assisting with the administration with preparing this budget. I just had a question with respect to the department's vehicles. Do you feel that that is at an adequate amount, that you're at a good place with respect to the vehicles? I believe that's for those who are looking at the expenditure, that's 532,110, at least for the replacement vehicles.
Yes, so every year we try to replace 8 of the frontline cruisers based on mileage and wear and tear. And we've been doing that every year since I've been the chief, and I really appreciate that. That's allowed the fleet to remain one of the best fleets, I believe, in the state. And we all know that a police vehicle is the #1 piece of equipment for a police officer. So for their safety and also for them to do their job efficiently. So the cost, as you can see, went up slightly. Like anything else, the cost of the lighting packages and the vehicles themselves have gone up, but we do try to get the very best price by tapping into group pricing through Massachusetts and Rhode Island. So we've done pretty well with that. And we also have our own installer of the lights now that does it in-house. So we've saved some money having that access to that resource at the police department.
Okay, great. I don't have any other questions at this time. Thank you.
Councilman Paplaskas.
Just have a follow-up on Council President's question. The police cars, they all get serviced, or most of the service, if it's not a dealer thing, does that go to fleet maintenance?
Yes, it depends on what it is. So if it's something that's under warranty or a recall, it usually goes to Tasca. But the general maintenance, like oil changes and tire rotations, that goes right through the city fleet department.
Okay, thank you.
One question I have is, it's line item 51102 on the expenditure side, special duty. The 23 budget is 176K. The proposed budget is 191. Courtesy of budget auditor DeMayo, he did the math. It's currently running the actuals for this budget are annualized to 367,000. Any reason for why? And that's pretty close to what it was in fiscal year 22.
Yeah, that was one with, if I may. One of the issues we're having in the major was talking about it. It's how grants or specialty details are captured and accounted for. I'm back to what I'll refer to as the single audit, where they were talking about how we account for grant expenses on overtime, AKA special details. And what they were doing is netting them out. So what we're doing is, in this budget, the revenue now is going to be properly allocated. So what you should see going forward, both in 24 and forward, is the accounting of those expenses not appearing here, being, following where the revenue is.
Would it, should it mirror then the police detail card? Is that,
And if I just may, what it probably will mirror more closely is expenses back in 2021 with an inflationary factor with their salaries. The issues started occurring in 23, I'm sorry, FY 22, the year that we're currently under. We're trying to get that all corrected for FY 23 in prospective.
okay, thank you. Major?
And that would be probably put as a deferred revenue.
Are there any other, Councilman Paplaskas?
Thank you. I just fire off the questions, Chair, when they come into my head. I see in the audience here, up next, we have municipal court. I guess my question is, do we still have the CARE program? Are their details out there every day doing traffic enforcement, keeping our court system busy?
Well, I can tell you that since COVID, the number of tickets that have been written have declined significantly, and that's not just in Cranston, that's every police department in the state, probably even further than that. But we are running the CARE details. We make it very convenient for the officers to go out, and all those areas that come in through constituent affairs are put on a list, and there's 4 or 5 core officers that work these details, whether it be overnight parking, speed enforcement, DUI enforcement. But you know, they get the numbers are coming up. The car stops are we stop almost 20,000 cars a month, which is a lot of cars. So it's up to their discretion whether they write a ticket or not. A lot of times it's left with some type of verbal warning or a written warning, and that's their prerogative. But hopefully those details, like the CARE detail, the officers know that that's high intensity enforcement, and tickets are expected to be written on that detail. So we're trying to send a message the best we can to get more tickets written.
Yeah, and just to follow up, I've had constituents reach out to me after they've had interaction with your department, have been stopped, and you mentioned discretion there. A lot of it's education, educating motorists or wear their seatbelt or not look at their phone or whatever they're doing wrong. But I've always received positive phone calls from the residents that have reached out to me after interacting with the department. So if you please pass that message on. Thank you.
Are there any other, Council Vice President?
Other revenues, what is considered other revenues?
the major mention, not be APRA request fees, some other fees that really don't have a defined category, if you will, so. Forfeitures do not, no. The Are you talking about drug seizures and forfeitures? Yeah, that's usually not included in the
They're not
budget.
in the general fund, they're in, I believe, a special revenue fund or a trust. They're not a general fund revenue because they're held for a special purpose.
Point in terms of adding the dollar amount coming in for just forfeiture reports.
I don't know
Maybe
if
2
we can,
years
I
ago.
don't know if we can do that, because by federal and state law, you cannot use those funds to fund, any type of operation. It's called supplanting, and it's actually
Yeah.
illegal, so that's why we don't report it back to
It
the
is.
council. Yes.
And then the other item that I have on here was on is it on the revenue side? Sorry, bear with me. This is very small, but despite the fact having glasses, I still can't see. I think it was on the community care fingerprint cards. I know that's obviously staying the same, but I'm just curious, is that something that it's not a revenue side, but are we working in terms of getting those community cards out to the community? I mean, those are free, right? They're not paying for anyone who wants a child fingerprinted or pictures or anything like that?
Which line item we referring to,
I think she's
It's on the police side. It's under expenditures, which is 53204.
Yeah, those are the card program, actually, Inspector Local Levitt's, we bring that to all the festivals and fairs. And we
Okay.
give the parents ID cards for the kids, so. I'm
You just
assuming-
answered my question. I'm not trying to take money away from that line item at all. I'm actually trying to get a sense as to how we can eventually down the line work on promoting that more or so, because I saw that a couple of the police departments are doing that as well throughout the cities and towns fairs, but I wasn't sure how we're getting their word out. All right. My other question though is the flock system. I think that was mentioned in the mayor's budget address. Where in the budget is that coming out of in your budget?
We use forfeiture money for that, and
That's
we
why I
pay
don't
for
see
2
it.
years upfront.
All right,
So
what was the
we're-
cost for that?
It's 80,000 in total. That's
And when
two-
is
2
that
years.
second year coming up?
Um,
Because we were,
Last year, we paid for the 2 years, and we don't for that follow.
and I didn't see it on where we were paying for that on here. I actually support the system for the record. And I supported it when it came for the pilot, and I'll continue to support that as the way it was presented to us. But again, I just wanted to double check, where were we paying for that out of this budget? Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Rensley.
Thank you. Hi, Chief, how are you? I don't know if this question was asked because I just had to go do something for my child, but for the school safety initiative, the actual, it's, what is that exactly?
So when Mayor Fung was here, he added that program. And essentially every single day of the school year, we have 2 officers on detail, eastern side of the city and the western side of the city. Those officers randomly check all schools within the jurisdiction, not only for safety reasons, but also to interact with the kids. So it's a very effective program. We get a lot of positive comments back, and obviously with the situation across the country with school shootings, having visible officers randomly arrive at schools is a positive for us.
And would you say that that could be increased, that you would need more, you could do more if you had more? Or is it kind of just they're covering everything with the people that you have.
Well, as you know, we have SROs that are assigned to particular schools, so this is, it's been effective up to this point, and we were able to cover a lot of ground with those two officers.
Thank you.
Director Moretti.
Just an observation. I do want to point this out because not to feel like we're picking on any one department in terms of what I mentioned before. If you look down here, there's several line items that we've asked the police department to dig in a little deeper where we actually have reductions over years, like department expenses, various areas. So getting back to the austerity budget that the director has indicated, the police department is very professional in their approach to working with them and decreasing several of, I'll say, the smaller accounts, but not to sacrifice essential services. So I just, again, want to point that out. That happened in fire. If you observe their budget, you're going to see it across the board happen in the mayor's office, the city council. There isn't a department that I'll say we left untouched. So that's why we're asking people to do their part. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Is this including Harbor Master as well, or are we gonna get to that after this one? Okay, then I'll wait.
All right. Are there any members of the public that have any questions or comment on the police department? Seeing none in person, are there any online?
No public comment.
All right, at this time, we will believe next, we have animal control.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The FY 24's recommendation from the mayor is in the amount of $358,881. That's up from the FY 23 budget in the amount of $334,100. Predominantly, they're in the areas of the salary schedule, and secondly, the line items for pension contribution, and finally, the line item care of animals contribute to the increase between year to year for animal control.
Are there any questions or comments by anyone on the committee? All right, seeing none. Are there any members of the public that have any questions or comments regarding animal control? Seeing none, are there any comments online regarding animal control from the public?
No public comment.
All right, we will close animal control. This time we will move on to the harbor master.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Harbor Master Group 1902, page 22. The mayor's FY 24 budget is recommending the amount of $4,770. That's a reduction from the FY 23 level of $5,770. Predominantly in the area of departmental expenses.
Thank you, Director. The on the revenue side, that is those are what licenses collected by the harbor master themselves?
Yes, mooring fees, any fines that he writes, he collects those and submits them to the city.
Oh, thank you. Council Vice President.
Chief, what are the expenses? I think I asked this every year. What are we going to be expensing? The dollar amount that's being requested or it's being added to this budget? I think last year I asked and it was on boats or maintenance. I think it was about a boat or something along those lines. What are we using that $1,000 for? At least what do we anticipate, I guess, using it for?
Well, we have to winterize the boat every year. We have to bottom paint. Sometimes there's small pieces of equipment that have to be maintained and upgraded. And as you know, that the boat is also used by our dive team, so it's shared between the harbor master and the dive team. So small amounts of equipment like GPS units, things like that, that we purchased over the time, but it's basic maintenance of the boat, which is an older boat.
And how often is a harbor master coming in to actually engage uh, with, I guess, with the police department?
He doesn't have a set schedule because it's a stipend. So he doesn't get paid hourly. So it's kind of at his leisure, if you will, when he actually goes out and does enforcement. We do ask that when he goes out that he notifies our dispatch center, and we have radio communication with him. So I don't have the set number of hours. I mean, it's periodic. It's not, we don't have a lot of boat traffic, and so it's not very active, I should say.
But come summertime, is that something that he possibly engages more, I would assume, with having the 2 yacht clubs there and in general?
Yeah, usually from May to September, that's when he's busiest. Usually the winter time, he's not out there. And the boat actually that we use is not in the water right now. Usually we put it in, soon in the next few weeks, and we dock it at the thanks to Johnson and Wales, they give us free docking for the boat. That's where it sits. And anytime he needs to use the boat, he has access to it.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other, Councilman Paplaskas?
Thank you, Chairman. Just have a question. Do you still have the Police Explorer program, and just looking for an update on how that's going, and ask you if you have enough funding for it, and just get a general update.
So we have over 20 Explorers, which is pretty good. It's probably the largest number we've had in quite some time. And those Explorers are from primarily Cranston East High School. It's a very diverse group of people, kids, I should say, from 14 to I think 18 or 19 years old. And my hat's off to the people like the Explorer advisors from the police department. I know Inspector Oklevitz is here. It's a lot of work, but the program is very successful. Not everybody wants to be a police officer that's in the Explorer program. And also they go to a summer camp down in Narragansett every year. So it's a great program, and we expanded the number of Explorer advisors. So it's a more diverse group. So we have a female Explorer advisors as well. So it's a great program, and we're glad we can continue it going forward.
Okay, do you have enough funding for it, for current levels? You said it's the biggest class, and I know recruitment's been difficult with policing across the board from every department. So hopefully this will inspire some young people to follow through and become police officers.
Yes, that camp, so the expenses primarily are insurance. It goes through the Boy Scouts of America, and then uniforms. So now having a larger group, we've made it work up to this point. But unfortunately, they're doubling the cost. I just found out tonight of the entrance fees for the summer camp, which usually 10 kids attend. So it's going for $150 up to $300. So, could that line item, see an increase of $1,500? That would be great. If not, we'll try to make it work best we can.
Yeah, we, I help out with the scout troop that my son's in, and we saw a big increase in summer camps too. And just like everything else, their cost is going up, and they're seeing less kids overall. So unfortunately, the pricing is going up for everybody. So I can understand that. Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Chair.
Council Vice President.
I'd say the police academy, the police citizens academy, though, that's free, is it not?
That's free. That's about to start. We have over 20 people going into that. This is the young kids, the Explorer program.
Young folk. But for those that are probably 19 years old or 20 years old that are not in high school and may want to actually get a sense as to what the police department, kind of works on a day-to-day, that might be another option. So just in case, Chris, you may want to go to the police academy. I'm not sure you have any interest.
Are there any other questions regarding Harbor Master? Seeing none, are there any comments or questions from the public? Seeing none in person, are there any questions or comments from the public online?
No public comment.
Thank you, Colonel. This time we will close Harbor Master. And last but not least, Municipal Court. Judge? Welcome, welcome, Judge. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here.
Mr. Chairman, the current, the budget before you as submitted by the mayor is, for the municipal court is in the amount of $368,634, a reduction from the FY 23 budget in the amount of $444,049. There's a reallocation on the salary side where an appropriation has been moved down to part-time help for a certain position. Reductions also flow through the fringe benefits, including hospitalization, and department expenses have been recommended for a reduction of 45,000 down from 50,000. And then the last component of the reduction again is the similar to the clerk's office, a reduction in the amount of payments to the state for tickets being issued.
Any members of the public of the committee have any questions? Council Vice President.
You explain to me the reason as to moving the salary allocation to part-time help?
This was a transitional.
And if I can have the Director Moretti, I'm sorry, I just want to double check, make sure that I'm getting the right, and I'm sorry, I apologize, your conversation, but I just want to make sure that while you're answering, I may have a question for the director as well. Sorry, Director, go ahead.
Through the chair, the chairman, the position in question was, I'm gonna say, not a full-time scheduled position, at least the way we looked at it when we did the extract for payroll. So, we kept the funding in the budget, but it's been reallocated down to a part-time position. Because it was not a filled position.
So Director Murray knows, Director, the salary amount was actually reduced and allocated instead to it's a part-time help. What was the reason why? Could we not find help? What's the strategy behind that?
Actually, from a discussion held yesterday, the position was never filled, I'll say a full-time position. And we're making do with a part-time position. That's kind of the bottom line.
But wasn't that the position we were going to be having an interpreter?
That's what, there are part-time people that are one person in right now as an interpreter clerk. And that person, should they leave or whatever, will be replaced with the equivalent of a part-time interpreter clerk. So what's, just like every department, there's, they say demands. And every department, there's requests for more people, more help. I'm sure this is probably one of them, but it's working right now and we're able to make it work. So that we're covering that interpreter from what, in fact, Elizabeth, we had a discussion just as of yesterday.
The interpreter is a clerk as well?
Yes, yeah, they're not just sitting there waiting to interpret, but
That's fine. But, evening and thank you. When part-time person came in, they were hired as a part-time employee,
Yes, that's correct.
was not hired to be a full-time employee, correct?
Correct.
And so I thought at one point the administration had said, when they asked for the funding, maybe a year ago or more, that this position was intended for a full-time employee. Is that, and that's no longer the case?
well, I guess it's kind of rhetorical. So I assume that position was budgeted in 2023. It was budgeted in 2023, and obviously we went, the mayor reacted to the financial condition of the city, and this was one of many positions that wasn't filled.
Right, so.
Or unfortunately, as you know, elimination of approximately 24 positions. So we didn't have the luxury, we felt, of funding everything that we could.
And so she's a clerk, so is she working for the judge when she's, or he or they are working in terms of interpreting, are they also the clerk and interpreting? In other words, if I'm sitting down as the clerk working for the judge and someone comes in and needs translation, is the clerk doing two jobs at the same time?
We all are. So I'm interpreting, she's interpreting in court, I'm interpreting on the window, on emails, through the phone. We're all wearing a lot of hats because the court runs on one full-timer and one part-timer, and then myself.
And do you think it's operating as smooth as it could? Or, I mean, I know you might be making it operate, but do you realistically think that's the way that it should be operating?
We are the second biggest municipal court in the state with the lowest staff by 4. We rely right now on the part-timer as well as several interns that come in through the universities as well as the Met High School right now. So that's pretty much how we're staying afloat, is through those enrichment programs where the students do come in to learn the job and the position and the inner workings of the court. So that is how we're able to stay afloat. Without those students, we would have to shut the municipal court down.
Okay, so you have one part-time employee, one full-time, and then yourself. So that one part-time help would be that 32,300 salary.
I did speak with Director Moretti a couple days ago, and we are working on a secondary bilingual part-timer.
Cool.
We share them with the police department. A lot of the time, our interpreters will go for police reports, various incidents where they do need an interpreter, just because that's the right thing to do when there isn't anyone else available.
Okay. You.
We will exceed our budget, we believe, expectations, and go over $500,000 this year. Looking at the projections for next year, we do not believe that's a realistic number.
The part-time help.
No, for the amount of revenue that we're gonna generate. Quite frankly, as it is right now, we're going to have to eliminate the night sessions, which are quite popular. We don't have any more money in the budget to pay. My my deal with the police department was they provide at no expense to us, at their expense, the police protection for the judges during the day. And we paid them one detail a night or one detail a week for the night session. That's not gonna happen anymore. I can attest to the fact that because I'm there all the time, obviously not as much as Elizabeth, but they're stretched thin.
We're not going.
I don't have a budget for overtime and I don't have the staff to facilitate night court right now. It's not to say that it won't happen, but the clerk and I, as of right now, we take comp time because we know it's not in the budget for overtime going forward. However, that's not an option that she wants to utilize anymore. So my only choice, because I legally can't run the court with one person, is to eliminate night court sessions.
So would you think that the overload right now is backlogged? Or would it be if we get rid of night court?
It's more so that it's inconvenient to the constituents, because people do have children and they do bring them after the 5 o'clock session. They also work, a lot of the regular 9 to 5 hours. So it was a convenience factor. I wouldn't say that we're backlogged or behind. We're too efficient for that to happen. We've streamlined everything that we can and we are currently where we should be. What we are backlogged in is entering tickets because, as I've stressed the past couple of years with these budget sessions, the automated system that we requested be put into effect through the police department was denied by Captain Kite and not utilized. So now instead of those tickets being sent through the system on the state's system overnight, we have to manually enter that through the police system, manually enter it through the court system, then manually send out 14-day notices, 28-day notices, and court notices for each individual that gets any kind of municipal ordinance violation or housing violation.
As an aside, we've subsequently learned that it is quite feasible to phase that program, and there is no block from the Rhode Island State Police, as was alleged. That was incorrect information. Was provided to us and then provided to the administration or provided to the police department. So that can be readily available. It saves a lot of man and woman hours. As you can imagine, having to manually upload the tickets takes time that they frankly don't have. This system allowed the police officer to simply upload it in the system. It would go into the Rhode Island Traffic Tribunal system. Right? Come in, you print up the sheet, you fill out, ticket to fill out, and walk through them.
So just to give an example, with parking tickets right now, I'm about a week behind. There's several hundred that need to be entered. So as constituents call to say, you know, I'm looking to pay my ticket online, it's not available, we're entering it as we go. But the life cycle of that ticket is the officer writes it, we get it within 48 hours, we enter it into the police system, we run it for the back information, enter it into our system manually. And we get about 300 come Monday from the ticket details. And that's not just parking. That's also animal control violations, housing, any municipal ordinance like the marijuana tickets. So it is an array of tickets that were backlogged in because they have to be manually entered and it is so labor intensive.
Sorry, through the chair, just one question, but you know, I'm 300, I'm sure manually is obviously it's a lot when you're also having to, you know, work and do a lot of other things within that office. Is it also delaying someone calling in? They usually have like 14 days to pay it, correct? It's not delaying someone to then double their fines,
No,
right?
we've been very laxadacious with the enforcement of the penalties. If we see that the postmark is close to that 14 days, we're not trying to make anybody have a bad experience with the city. So we do have the judge's discretion with that as well as the solicitor to remove those penalties when appropriate.
Okay.
In the interest of good relations with the constituents, we do that quite often, especially lately. And we work closely with Really no citizen. Very.
Thank you, Council Vice President. Your Honor, one of the, did I hear you correctly that you, on the revenue side, you do not believe that it would be realistic to hit the proposed budgeted amount, the 570?
That's correct.
Okay. Because I was gonna ask, it's
But
the,
next, for the fiscal year upcoming 2023, we will exceed, I believe, this year's projection. Or 2000
so exceed fiscal year 23, I think it's annualized for, right, we were doing the math, 99. So that's $25,000 over. It's budgeted for next year at 570. You don't think 570 is realistic?
Like I said, we're overachievers. We haven't really missed a revenue point yet, so I'm striving to hit that. But $95,000 increase while the police department is down for writing tickets, and that is almost solely what our revenue is based on. We're optimistically going to try. That's all that we can do is kind of process what we have there.
And if I just may continue, of all this revenue estimate was predicated, is aggressive in relative terms, but as the chief was inferring to, on the lines of Councilor Papalakas's question in terms of the balancing act between, a warning and a ticket is a judgment call. And one of the conversations we were having was on the number of tickets being issued, not to be overzealous, but when pulling over on the care duty and how they rate the ticket, that was something we were discussing with the police department, which then I don't want to say trickles down, goes over to the municipal court in terms of adjudication and payment. So it's the front end, back end.
Yeah, well, I just want on a note, I don't know if it's formula related, but the payroll taxes are not inclusive of the part-time position, which is roughly another $2,500 in expenses that was omitted. I'm just assuming it was because it was dropped down out of the top category. It just didn't calculate correctly.
Through the chair to Mr. The budget analyst, I will check on that one. That very well could be.
Councilman Paplaskas.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Judge and Elizabeth. I appreciate it for all your hard work. Question on back to the revenue side of not being able to hit the number of 570. Back before COVID in 2019, it looks like we did hit 687,000, which is more than 100,000 more than what is submitted in this budget here. Is it strictly the tickets, or that year in 2019, was there a big ticket item or a housing case or something that came in front of us that kicked us that far up?
No, if you look at the projections since fiscal year 2017, going forward, 17, 18, 19, that was third quarter. We still had an entire quarter and a half really to go at 680 something. We were probably on record for 750, 800,000. Then COVID hit, so everything shut down. So Liz has the exact numbers, but that was third quarter. We've had our own discussions with the police department. Those are quite frank discussions with. They know where we stand as far as writing tickets. We've tried to work with them, we think quite effectively. Through the partnership, we've been able to get the camera ride details up the $2 that they were short for their other details for construction, et cetera. So they get the same money now for a care and a ride detail as they do in a cruiser, on a construction site. So those are equal pay now. So they know where they stand as far as the
Yeah, and I know there's no ticket quarter and we can't push tickets, so we're not doing that here. We're just looking at the revenue numbers, but certainly back in 2019, I mean, the court was on a record-setting year that year, and I always pivot back to that, and you know, it's the municipal court's a well-oiled machine, and you know, like I said, with the police department, you know, when I have constituents that interact with the police, I get a positive response or a phone call, and same thing with municipal court. Even people that might go in there and not get the disposition that they wish, they've reached out to me just to say how cordial and polite and what a great, you know, the touch with the public that you guys have there. So just want to say that as well. So thank you.
Want to reiterate something that Bennett said. That's, I mean, especially when I'm before the state. I've been there now before, and you know, that's a good role for everybody else.
Council President Marino.
Thank you to the chair. Thank you to Judge Smith. Thank you, Elizabeth, for the information tonight. Thank you for making do with less. I know I don't think I'm alone in that we would have liked to have seen you have more assistance at the clerk level, and particularly with interpreting services. You know, as an attorney myself, I understand the need and importance and frequency in which that comes up. And I'd like to see that improve. I had a couple of items, but one was the building code fines. I noticed that those are, I believe, tracking down, if I'm not mistaken. I know it's, you know, you only rule on what comes before you. But my question is, if you have any insight or anything you'd like to state with respect to that observation that I have.
Sure. With regards to housing court, the spirit of housing court is compliance, not fine amounts. So coming off of the COVID pandemic, as well as with the financial hardship that everyone is facing, especially Cranston constituents, Judge Fort presides over the housing calendar, and he is extremely lenient but vigilant in compliance. So a lot of the time, those people are getting considerable fines that are $500 a day, $50 a day, several thousand of dollars at a time. So when they are compliant, they do work with the city regarding getting their home back into code. A lot of the time, they're going to be dismissed with court costs or with nothing, because a lot of the people coming through that court are the elderly people who may not have the financial means to have gotten their homes to where they need to be in code. We do work particularly with CCAP to make sure that the constituents that come through the court are aware of the programs that are out there to winterize their homes, to get their roofs fixed, to get interior things taken care of, especially our elderly communities. We've had a really good partnership with the senior center regarding that as well. So while revenue is down, compliance is up, and that I think does make Cranston a better place.
Yep. No, I appreciate that. And just for, you know, those who are unaware, I mean, the budget for it is $7,500. The actual for this fiscal year is $39. Just for the factual piece of it. But exactly to your point, you know, it's a catch-22, because we want compliance, we want improvement, and not everyone has the ability or the availability of, let's say, a neighbor or a family member to help someone next door who's elderly, or someone who's unable in some way to do what they need to do with their home. So we, as a city, deal with the people that are, you know, complaining that their neighbor next door, you know, the house is in disrepair, or there's a building code issue. At the same time, you see these people on a day-to-day basis and know that, you know, oftentimes it's trying to get them the right help to get them in compliance. So I appreciate the insight, because you face that, you know, in a practical sense. Thanks. Yep.
I just want to add, subset of that is our residents, local properties, out-of-state owners. They can pay
That's different. Yep. Yeah.
Residents, elderly, et cetera.
Yep, nope, I appreciate that. And one other item I had, and maybe it doesn't need to be, and I don't mean to overstep the chair. But I saw that Judge Koya came in late, and I don't think Judge Smith saw that, so I just want to make sure Judge Koya has an opportunity if he wishes to be heard, or if not, I just want to welcome and give you that opportunity. That's it. Thanks.
If you can have my seat.
On the on the matter of on housing, does the court partner at all with the community development department to help connect connect residents who come in who might have an issue with to that point? If they could afford to bring it into compliance, they would do so. They probably can't afford the ticket or the fee. To connect them with community development with some of the housing rehabilitation programs that we have. At times they're grants that could help pay for those repairs.
So that, like I said, there's 2 full-timers in the court. We wear a lot of hats, and that is one of them because the trend in housing court lately has been the elderly and people who have mental health issues. So we have hoarder situations, we have people with dilapidated properties. So I personally have made it kind of a mission to give people the resources that they might not be cognizant that they have available to them. A lot of those partnerships have been with the Atwood Medical Facility in Johnston to kind of address those issues with them as a person to make sure that they're healthy, because we have had a considerable amount of individuals come in where they're disheveled. We've had a couple come in when they're inebriated. So we start with making sure that the person is competent to be in court. Then we kind of reach out to the different avenues through building and inspections and avenues that they have, as well as CCAP, the senior center, like we had mentioned previously, just to make sure that the people who don't have anyone when they come before us, at least we're right in Cranston Housing as well. But we just try to make sure that they're okay as individuals coming before us. They're able to confidently stand before the court, and then we sort of address what's going on with their property through the various grants or programs that they have available to them.
Thank you for being here, all of you. My question goes back to the interpreters. Are the interpreters being paid as interpreters or as part-time clerks? Or as part-time clerks with a stipend to interpret?
They are paid at a higher rate than most of the part-time clerks because their first and primary function is as a translator. And then obviously if there's not someone there to translate for it, they're not going to sit idly. So they do help with the clerical work as well.
So they're translators who can be a clerk rather than clerks who are translating. Okay. So you feel that they're filling that role just fine. If it was the opposite way, I would think that maybe this wasn't working out, but they are fulfilling the need for translation. You don't need more people to translate. There's always someone there who can translate,
As of right
not
now,
including yourself.
as of right now, there is someone there about 60% of the time to translate. If they're not, I update the website to reflect the hours that we have someone available. Because we do have it in Spanish on the website that we have Spanish interpretation. Usually, again, I can get by in her absence. But we haven't had someone on staff consistently. But we do about 60% of the time.
Would you say, and this is, I don't know if you can really answer this question, between the day and the nighttime court, is there more of a need for translation in one or the other, or that's a hard determination?
It's primarily the morning, because a lot of the time, those people don't know that they have the option to have a nighttime session. The people who have requested the nighttime sessions are usually our frequent flyers. And a lot of those don't have any translation services that they need.
And have we thought about using a digital translation service that you can get a PO and pay off, you call and will do the translation?
Yes, but they have to be court certified in that case, and it's a 4-hour minimum, and it's $200 an hour. It's through the Rhode Island Legal Services as well as the Dorcas Institute. So with the 4-hour minimum, it's like $800 to utilize the service because we have to have them on call per session. So even if we didn't use them at all, we would still have to pay them that $800 a session.
And that's because they have to be court certified,
Correct. When we use outside interpreters, they have to be certified.
but for court specifically. Okay. And then my last question was if you have to get rid of night court, is there any estimate you're able to give on to how that affects financially, like how many tickets get written at night versus during the day? Or is there no way to determine how much money we would lose based, against how much overtime you pay?
Sure. Night court is primarily compiled of trials. So they are usually costly, and it is usually a high dollar amount. So it would be a hit to the revenue for those people, or it would just be inconvenient for them because they really wouldn't have an alternative. If we don't have 5 PMs, you're here at 9 or 9:30 on a Friday, and that's it. That's when we offer court.
Have we always offered night court, or is that a newer?
Night
What-
court's been offered since 2017. They had sporadic night court sessions to accommodate needs, but it wasn't something that was consistently scheduled the way that it has been. We tried to make it a staple because we had so many constituents reach out that they work 9 to 5s or they have children. We welcome children in court. We're very inclusive. We don't mind at all. We try to get those people out first. So that would be where that stands.
And rather than overtime, have we ever thought of just having staggered schedule as though someone is hired just to work those type of hours? Or that's not something that can be done?
I'm honestly not sure. I know with the full timer that I have right now, it's just the 2 of us, and the other person is there primarily to translate in the mornings for court.
Okay. And how much is that ticket system?
Well, it was free for 2 years, but I'm not sure. I would have to check with them to see what the actual pricing was because we were chosen to pilot it, and you were there for that. It didn't happen. So that is a $40,000 program that normally we can get at some kind of a discount because of our relationship with the software company. We test a lot of their software as the demo court for them because Cranston is in the world of municipal courts pretty prestigious. We do what we have to do. We're very by the book. So I would be able to reach out to them and see if there was a new estimate for that. But as it stands, it was between $40,000 and $50,000 to start.
and then a yearly cost after that, or is that the initial cost or?
So it's priced per ticket, but it's no different than what we're paying now. We're paying $4 per municipal ordinance ticket violation. It would just streamline that same cost into the new system, but take away the labor costs behind it.
Would it also make it easier for police to write tickets?
Absolutely. Right now, they have to use literally a special pen that feeds through 3 sheets of paper to be legible by the constituent, the court, and then the officer's copy.
And just one more question that might have been addressed. Something about fees going forward, should the state of Rhode Island look much lower and something?
Sure. So those are the distributions that we owe the state when we have universal traffic summons issued. So on a $96 ticket, I think Cranston is able to keep about $40 of that. So the $56 that's left over is that line item for advance payment to the state of Rhode Island. So when they're writing less traffic tickets, less universal traffic summonses, we pay less to the state and we retain more funds. But the trade-off is the cost of the tickets. So with universal traffic summons, the state pays for the paper, they pay for the ink in the cars to the officers. We don't have to pay anything. With a municipal ordinance violation, I have to buy those ticket books and they're about $5,000 to $6,000 quarterly.
Is there anything we can do to reduce that pricing for the municipal?
So we could digitize the tickets.
Okay, thank you.
One last point as far as the night session.
Thank you, Your Honor, both of you. Thank you. There any members of the public? Any comment? See none in person. Are there any members of the public online?
No public comment.
All right, before we entertain a motion to adjourn, thank you to members of the administration, all members of the departments that were present this evening, to Budget Auditor DeMayo, to our clerk department. See you all Thursday, 6 p.m. for the next round of budget hearings. At this time, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Ayes have it. We are adjourned.